Hello, friends.
Hi,
Welcome
guys.
back to Death Before Booze. I'm Sam.
I'm Jen.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, Sam.
I missed you. I know,
I
we talk
know.
all the time, but I still miss you.
But it's like the holidays. Everybody's all freaking nutso cuckoo banana. So you're like, I don't know.
It has been a holiday. So today we have a really fun topic.
Yep.
Super kind of creepy in my opinion. Jen, you want to tell us what our topic is?
Our topic is sibling rivalry.
Sibling rivalry. I kind of misunderstood the assignment, but at the same time,
That's okay.
it's kind of creepy anyway. So let's get it. Jen, you're
Okay.
going first. So tell me
I
a
go
story.
first. So I'm telling you the story of the Broken Arrow murders in Oklahoma. There is a town called
Rain in Oklahoma to wash the sins out of that house. Move over. What's her name? Carrie Underwood. I'm coming. So excited. Sorry,
There is a town called Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, which I didn't know until this case because whenever you refer to this case, it's the Broken Arrow murders. And you're like, oh, okay.
So is
anyway.
it because it's in Broken Arrow, or did somebody break?
It's because. No,
Okay.
it's because. It's just such a, I don't know. I thought it was a cool name, but I'm like, huh, all right, cool.
Yeah.
So it's a quiet town in Oklahoma, very family oriented, very church going, and the homicide rate is extremely low until today.
With a name like Broken Arrow, you think there'd be a lot
Right?
of hunting accidents for some random reason.
Yeah.
I think I've been
so.
watching too much Northwoods Law on Animal Planet. I'm always like, there's an arrow. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. So we're going to talk about the Bever family, and they consist of David, who at the time of this was 52, April, 44, and they have 7 kids because it wouldn't be
It wouldn't be a Jen story
a
without
me story. So they
It
have,
wouldn't be a Jen story unless the poor woman's vagina was a hallway. It's
right? But it makes sense for this family because they are kind of very closed off, but we'll get to that. So we have Robert, who is 18, Michael, who is 16, Crystal, who is 13, Daniel, who is 12, Christopher, who is 7, Victoria, who is 5, and then they have a 2-year-old baby.
Should I have written that down?
No, the
Okay.
ages don't matter, but I kind of want to just throw them out there so that when the story continues, you're like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like,
Oh, I'm already
so,
there. Let's go.
So David was a computer analyst and he worked in the office, but also he was able to work from home a couple days.
And what year was
And
this? I'm sorry. You said it already,
This
didn't you?
is actually no. This is around 2012.
Oh, so
this
this is
is-
like almost kind of, this is like 22. Ooh, 22 years ago. That's not.
Yeah,
Why,
so
why
it's not
when I
that
hear
bad.
20 years ago, do I still think it's like, the 80s,
The 80s?
we're talking about?
I know, because it's
I
like
hate
we're
it.
getting old, and I'm like,
I know.
what? April also had the ability to work from home. I mean, she's got 7 kids to fucking take care of, so there it is. So,
Yeah, daycare was even expensive in,
Right.
2012, so it's fine.
well, she also homeschooled her children. So this is one of those families where
Oh.
the parents tried to shield them. We don't want them to go to school because we don't want them to get to the outside world. We don't want them to have bad influences. They're a very Christian family. They are closed off. Even their neighbors were like, yeah, we
They
didn't really
created
see
their own
them.
little cult. Like, that's next
No,
episode,
but it
they're
kind
doing
of seems
cults.
no, it kind of seems that way. So if you're like playing along with a bingo card, like you'd think, oh, this is it's
Checking
just
my
I think
boxes.
it's more like a overprotective family who's like, well, no, we can't send them to school because look at all the crazy stuff that's going on and they'll get influenced and stuff.
Okay.
So, well, despite the parents keeping them home, they had internet access and they did not monitor their electronics. So
As a data analyst, this guy didn't. Okay.
you think,
Okay.
right? Right?
Yeah.
That's the number one thing I was like, all right.
You're so smart and so dumb all at the same time. Congratulations.
So in 2013, Robert, who was the oldest, started making YouTube videos. And then he started looking into not so great things like serial killers and spree shooters and being like, wow, that's
you're
so
painting,
cool.
You're painting a pretty bad picture right now, because what do you do
me?
in your free time? I mean, at least my people have been dead for like probably a while. You are all like,
Yeah, I'm like, that's true. No, I'm on a list. I definitely am. It's not a matter of like just his obsession is more like the amount of notoriety that these people are getting, and the fact that they're like basically almost his like role models. So
oh, that's not good.
his younger brother Michael, who was a couple years younger than him, they shared a room. So, and Michael seemed to be the follower. He kind of saw what Robert was doing and was like, "Oh, cool, blah 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 blah."
It's also
blah.
your older brother. You kind of look up
Yeah,
to them.
of
You're
course.
like, oh.
So, he likes serial killers because he likes, the fact that they shoot people, and and he thinks that that's really freaking neat, and he wants to watch snuff films. That's great. I'll do it too. So,
What?
you know,
Ew.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're
so
12?
that
They're 12?
at the time like 16, 17, but
Oh,
still,
oh, that's worse. Okay.
that's not, yeah. So around 2014, the boys started to kind of get a little bit more obsessed with this. They watched the movie Rampage that came out in 2009. Have you ever seen it? I haven't.
I've heard of it.
It's
I've heard
basically, it's about a person who believes the world is overpopulated, one day snaps and goes on a killing spree.
Oh, okay.
So they watched this. They became obsessed with this idea. There are too many people in the world, and we have to basically, cut down the population because.
Well, I mean, if they waited a couple years, COVID did that. So they were
Jesus.
they were a little early.
I mean, so
How many people, even if you're on a rampage, you're not John Wick. Like, how many people are you actually going to kill?
yeah, agreed. But so this is where the planning started for the two of them, because they went, Now, they were getting money because Robert did have a job. He worked at a Christian call center.
Oh my God, I definitely thought you were going to say he worked as a Christian at Hobby Lobby and helped people pick out jars for their placentas. I was going to be like, way to make that so, like, I heard Christian and was like, dude, Hobby Lobby.
No.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm so, like,
Oh my
what?
No.
He worked in the jar department of Hobby Lobby.
He worked at the jar department.
Well, they have the shelf department, the decor department,
That's
the fabric department, and they have the jar department. Like, where do you put all the fake flowers? That's a whole nother department. They can't work together. There's no cross training here.
That is true.
Yeah.
So basically what this call center is like, it's kind of like not a suicide helpline, but it's basically someone calls in and is like, I'm having a really rough time. So the person on the line prays with them.
Oh, this guy must suck at this job.
Well, apparently he was okay with it because nobody said anything, but this is where he earned his money. And his money, he would spend it on body armor, Kevlar vests, shields, helmets with face masks, and lots of knives at this point.
I mean, yeah. What do you do with your extra spending money?
So the two of them decided they wanted to devise a plan to become prolific killers. So they were going to plan to kill 500 people plus because they wanted to be on TV. They wanted a Wikipedia page.
They couldn't just eat
The whole
Tide
nines.
Pods like the rest of them?
Yeah, but that's not killing people. Like, their whole thing was they wanted to kill people. It wasn't just about, I want to be on TV and look like a fucking idiot.
Oh, well, I mean, okay.
Right. So they then, while they were planning and while they were plotting and doing all this whole thing, Crystal, their, the girl under them, the oldest sister,
Okay.
knew they were purchasing these things. And she was like, this is fucking weird. So she went to her parents and was like, hey, Robert and Michael are buying shit. It's very weird. and I'm uncomfortable with it. I don't know what to do. And the parents are like, meh,
Boys will be boys.
That's it.
Oh my
So,
god. But now if she bought too many tampons, I bet they'd get really upset
Right.
because she broke her hymen and Jesus would be mad. It's okay. It's okay. They have a jar for that. You can put it in there and save it
You
forever.
go to Hobby Lobby and get the jar.
Get the jar for your hymen. It's really small.
So, this is when we get to the day of the tragedy. So, July 22nd, 2015. Robert and Michael both armed themselves with knives and decided, okay, this is the night they have to start their plan. And there's going to be a reason why it had to be this particular night and not whatever. But they've been planning it. And their whole thing was, we have to start with the family because we get the family out of the way and then we can move on and have no strings attached type of thing. So they disabled the home alarm system first. So there it is. They thought, if we can lure Crystal, who is 13, okay, she's the second, like she's the third oldest. If we can lure her into the room, we can get rid of her first, and then everybody kind of follows suit. Well, they watched too many movies because one stab does not a death make. So
Oh my god, what idiot.
she came into the room because they were like, hey, we got to show you something on the computer. She's like, okay, fine. They stabbed her and tried to, again, and continued to repeatedly stab her. Now, she fought back and she was screaming, and she eventually was able to get out of the room. Whether she crawled, whether she ran, it's unclear because she was stabbed so many times. So she tried to get to the front door to escape. Now, because they realized after all this was going on, she crawled out of the house. They grabbed her, pulled her back inside, and proceeded to strangle her.
Where the fuck are the parents? Like, your child is screaming bloody murder, and you're
Mom heard her because this is just, again, she got out of the room. Mom was in the other room and was like, the fuck is... So she gets up and starts running. Robert stabs her 48 times.
The mom.
In the arms, the neck.
Oh my god.
The face, the chest, the abdomen. And again, she was fighting back, but it just, too much blood loss.
The mom.
So she ran in. They were already armed because they already were stabbing their sister.
Oh my god.
So at this point, the other siblings are like, something's going on and we're scared. They're scared. They're under 12 years old. So they're terrified. So Dad was asleep upstairs, but if you look at how the layout of the house is, it's like on one side of the house and everything was going on the other. So it kind of...
There's enough buffer and walls and
so he didn't hear it immediately. So he was one of the last... Like, he got there last, but he, again, it's very long. It's very big. It's a big... Because they were, living a pretty comfortable life.
But there are 9 people in this family. Like, the house has to be bigger. It's not like they're living in a shed.
No, and it's a pretty comfortable house, but like, again, it's longer. It's one of those, like, I believe it was like the like 2-floor maybe, but like on the other side is where Dad was. So that's why he didn't immediately, because he was sleeping because it was later at night.
Not even that. Like, when Ken sleeps, he's dead to the world. So like, he was just a heavy sleeper, like, unfortunately.
Exactly. So Christopher and Victoria, who, again, Chris and Victoria are 7 and 5. Okay. They locked themselves in the bathroom and they're terrified. Could you, like, imagine a 7 and a 5-year-old being terrified?
Oh my god, all of a sudden I think I know exactly what case you're talking about. Like, it finally clicked. Oh, I don't like it. Okay, go ahead.
So Michael convinces them, he's like, listen, Robert's hurting me too. Let me in so that I can, we can hide together. Well,
he killed them with they love. What is that from? It's from a movie. He killed them with they love. Oh no.
So the two of them believed him because they're his older brother, and they're, so they let him in. And Michael started to stab the two of them. Christopher suffered 21 stab wounds to the back, the head, the chest, and the neck. Okay. And Victoria, 23 stab wounds.
Oh no.
both had defensive wounds as well. They're fighting back. Like,
Good.
now at the trial, because eventually this is just kind of a, a pinpoint, Robert tried to take credit for this because he didn't want to have Michael, or whatever it was, but he took credit for the stabbing. But eventually Michael did admit he did kill his siblings.
Oh.
Daniel, who's 12, went into the home office, locked the door, dialed 911.
Oh, thank God.
And all he said was, my brother's attacking my family, please help. And you hear on the 911 call how he's like really scared.
Yeah.
Michael did the same thing. He said, hey, let me in because Robert's behind me. He's, whatever. So once he lets them in, the two of them go, and you hear on the 911 call him go, help, and then it stops. The operator's like, hello, and then someone picks up the phone, says hello, and then it just clicks out. So
Oh my God, I want to throw up.
It's
Why
yeah,
are people
it's not
so
a great-
terrible?
So Daniel again was also stabbed 21 times. This is a lot. Like, it's not like just a. So, despite all of this happening very quickly, dispatchers were arriving at the scene. So it was taking a little bit of time, but he had
But
called.
I mean, they had 7 people to kill, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
So Dad eventually, like, after hearing all of this shit, was like, holy fuck. So what, like, bolts awake, attempts to rush Robert, but I guess how he stabbed him as he was rushing at him, it kind of left him off, and it didn't. He couldn't grab his son, because if you look at the picture of these two kids, you could fucking like eat these two kids. Like, you literally could break them in half. Like, they're not strong, but if they have enough force behind everything,
Yeah.
So Dad was stabbed 28 times. There it goes. So
Oh my God.
now they intended to go upstairs and kill their 2-year-old sister. That was the plan. But they wanted to, according to the boys, they wanted to do so by cutting off her head.
What?
The fuck is wrong with you?
What the fuck?
But it appeared, some sources say either they forgot about her or they heard the
God.
police and ran the fuck out. So she was unharmed. She was asleep in the
Oh,
bed.
thank God.
Nothing happened. Now, the police arrived, the boys took off the back door, and the police found blood on the sidewalk and on the front steps because Crystal had
Well, the
tried to
one
get
chick-
out.
yeah.
And they pulled her back in. So they were like, all right, knocking on the door. Hey, police, what's going on? And they hear a small, like, help from inside the house. So they bust open the door and they find Crystal, who is still alive.
Oh, thank God.
She's bleeding everywhere, but she's still alive.
Yeah.
She survived this entire attack despite suffering a slit neck, knife wounds in her stomach and arms, and they did try to strangle her, but I guess either she played dead or they
These really
underestimated
suck.
the amount of time that it would take to strangle somebody, because even later on the boys say it's not like the movies. We just saw that, you stab someone once and they're dead. That's not how it works. So they were
I mean,
very unprepared, it seems.
oh my God.
So
Stupid.
the police check the rest of the house, and of course they're trying to see if anybody else. The most heartbreaking, one of the officers said, he actually, like, during this interview that he was doing, started tearing up, was when the bathroom door was still locked, and then when they busted the door open, they found Christopher and Victoria, and he's like, I lost it.
yeah.
He's like, I just fucking lost it. Luckily, they were able to find the baby upstairs unharmed, and they were like, thank fucking Christ, because everybody else is fucking dead in the house except for those two. So,
Oh my God.
knowing that the boys weren't too far away, they called in the canine units to track them.
Good.
And they were able to get, the scent and everything. And they saw along the way, like, body armor was being shedded. Like, they were just kind of like drop it, whatever. So they're
stupid.
like, okay, we don't really know what we're dealing with right now, so we have to be cautious because, So within 10 minutes, the dogs find them. And the police are like, listen, comply with our orders or we're going to release the dogs on you. Like, you know. Robert immediately throws his hands up and is ready to comply. But Michael is kind of like in the bush. He still has his body armor on. He's moving around. So they're like, cut it out or we're going to fucking release the dogs. Well, they released the dogs. So,
Good. I hope he got bit right on the dick.
one of the dogs came and like kind of attacked his shoulder. And that's when he was like, okay. So, I mean, yeah. Okay. So they're both brought back to the house. And the cops said there seemed to be a sense of cockiness, especially in Robert, who, again, he's 18. He even turns to Michael at one point and says, quote, "It's been a pleasure. I'm proud of what we've done."
What
Right?
the fuck?
Isn't it fucking...
I don't like them. I hate him.
Yeah.
I hate him.
Now,
What a dick.
you can see Michael's interview because it's actually like... It's public. Robert's is not. And I'm assuming because it's disgusting. It's him being like, you know, he doesn't think he did anything wrong type of whatever. So Michael's interview, he was interviewed first because they're like, okay, he's 16. We can get him to crack. Well, you know.
Yeah.
So they're like, the fuck happened here? And he's like, well, we were talking about this for a couple months and we were getting the plan in motion. Robert purchased guns because you don't need a license to purchase them.
Why didn't we use the guns? Why didn't we use the guns? Why
They're
didn't we
not
have to
there
use the
yet.
knives?
Because they ordered them online so that they would go to the shop. So you have to pick them up from the shop.
Oh, how stupid are you? Okay.
The ammunition, however, was coming the next day. So they're like, okay, because that you can directly bring right to your house. The guns you have to go pick up at a store.
Okay.
Which is the case, I think, with all things. You have to, like, if you purchase a gun, you have to, I think you still need a license, though. You need to put your fucking license in there. But I don't know.
I would hope.
You would think so.
I would hope.
At least in Connecticut, I know. But in other states, I have no idea.
Oh my God.
But that's the case. The ammunition, you could deliver it to your house, but the guns you cannot. Which makes fucking sense. So.
Yeah.
Now, the boys were a little bit concerned because they're like, oh shit. If the ammunition comes to the house, mom and dad are going to see it. So we had to move up the timeline. So that's why that night they had to kill people because they were like, so the plan, because as Michael was saying, the plan was they were going to kill everybody in the home that night. They were going to make videos with the family members, put them in the attic, wait for the ammo the next day, go and pick up the guns, and then drive off on a killing spree.
This is very, like, sinister. I don't know why.
Yeah, right?
Right,
It's
like the
very,
dead kids
like-
in the attic, and like, I don't like it.
Everybody in the attic. We're just going to leave them there. So then the cop was like, but why kill your family? And Michael was just like, they were in the way. Okay.
They were in the way. They were in the way.
way.
They were in the way. Okay.
They were in the way. You know, my 2-year-old sister.
Yeah.
Like,
Ew.
so Michael initially said he didn't stab anybody, but then when they interviewed Robert was very forthcoming, almost like he was excited to explain everything. So the cops came back in and were like, so he gave us a little bit more information and says that you might have been more involved than you said you were. And he's like, all right, well, I did stab one of my brothers and I stabbed my mom. And then he said, but, you know, Robert was going to do this no matter what. And he told me if I didn't help him, he'd kill me. They're like, okay, all right. So during the hearings, Robert was eligible for the death penalty because in Oklahoma, that's if you commit that type of a crime and you are over 16, you're automatically eligible. Now, the attorneys decided, for Crystal's sake, because she had to testify if they went to trial, to offer a deal and said, okay, we'll take the death penalty off the table. So detectives told the court during his hearing, this is Robert's, not Michael's, Robert, quote, expressed wanting to have some sort of fame or notoriety for being a serial killer. He said that if he killed more than one person, it made him look like a god.
But But he didn't even hit serial killer. He didn't even.
No, he didn't.
He's a spree killer, right?
He's a spree killer. Yeah, that's
like
what
you
they.
didn't
Yeah.
even. You didn't even do it right. Like you fucked up, bro. Ew.
Well, it doesn't matter because he had no remorse,
What a
and
dick.
apparently he considered it a hobby. He was
A
laughing
hobby.
on several occasions, and when they asked him to tell his story, it's almost like again during the interview he was like excited to express what happened. So he intended to go on a super mass killing spree and wanted the Wikipedia page and everything else. They do have that because that's where I got initially my information is the Wikipedia page.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, as you.
However, there's there's a lot of documentaries on this too, and I actually watched a couple of them because it was just like, the fuck? It's just so weird.
I cannot.
So in 2016, Robert accepted the plea deal. So he avoided the death penalty, but he's sentenced to 5 life terms without parole.
Good. Bye, Felicia.
Okay.
I hope you rot.
He was given an additional 3 life sentences in 2020 because he attacked prison staff with a sharpened object.
Oh my god! What a momo.
Like,
He
what
like
are
pulled
we
a shank
doing?
out of his ass.
Yeah.
Like,
So he so he's in jail and then like 4 years later they're like, all right, add another 3 sentences.
yeah, I'm bored. Let's go on another spree.
Like, what are you gonna like? This is like the kid, going back to like the Breakfast Club. The kid who's like, "What are you gonna do? Add more detentions on?" And he's like, "Detention next week." He's like, "Fine, I don't care." This is
Perfect.
literally that kid. This is that kid.
Oh my god.
Like, what are you gonna do? Add another life sentence?
Let's go.
I mean, you're in there for life. So
Yeah.
now, Michael's attorney, however, did not want to take a plea deal. So unfortunately, Crystal did have to testify.
That's so terrible.
They were hoping they were going to be able to kind of be like, hey, for the sake of this girl who's fucking, she's got nothing left. She has her sister, and that's it. But anyway, they tried to plead insanity, of course.
Okay.
However, he was evaluated by a psychiatrist who said sometimes when it comes to murderers, you sit across from them and you're like, okay, that checks a box, whatever. Okay, there's mental illness somewhere in here. He's like, in Michael's case, there was nothing. No signs of mental illness, no signs of like abuse, because there wasn't. There wasn't any abuse. Their parents were just overprotective. So.
Now, was the threat of his brother like really a thing, or did he just say that in the interrogation?
I think it was just. That's kind of what I think the defense was trying to also go and say.
Because like
his
doing
brother was in
insane,
charge.
Yeah, like saying like we're pleading insanity is very different than we
Right.
did this under threat of demise or death. Like,
Right.
I'm, nervous.
I think the defense tried to go with that and tried to be like, well, this is, kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
but I think it might have just been brought up as like, well, he was going to do this anyway, whether I helped or not, type of thing. I don't know if he threatened to kill him. I don't think he did, but
I don't think he did either.
You know.
I think that was just a Hail Mary
Yeah.
to get out of it, honestly.
or he was, again, he's a 16-year-old kid. His family is just completely brutalized by him and his brother. They're bringing him in for questioning, and he's probably scared. Like, I mean, Robert wasn't, but he
That's what I'm
probably
saying.
was
Like,
scared.
he was like
So he's
probably
like,
clutching
I don't know.
at
He
straws,
probably
like,
would have killed
what?
me, right?
What can I say to get out of this right now?
Or even like not to get out of it. Maybe just say, well, I mean, he was going to do it anyway. Try to make people go, all right, well, I understand why you were involved.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Okay.
in 2018, Michael's trial begins. Robert actually testified for the defense, saying he was responsible. Michael was only watching. So this is where he said he took credit for all of the stabbings.
Oh, okay.
Then Crystal takes the stand and explains everything of that night. So 6 weeks as the trial's going on, that's how long the entire thing took. After the deliberation, the jury members came out and a lot of people said visibly they were crying. Like they were like just sobbing. So, of course, he's found guilty of 5 counts, first-degree murder,
Good.
5 consecutive life sentences plus 28 years with the possibility of parole. So he has a possibility.
Okay.
Michael then told the district judge, quote, "Every minute and every second, I've been thinking about what I could have done differently and what kind of life I would have had with my family."
You think?
Quote, "Okay, thanks." The boys can't be held in the same prison, obviously, because they were
Oh my God,
co-conspirators.
could you imagine?
There was a red composition notebook that they grabbed from Michael while he's in jail, where he was doing crayon drawings. He drew about death. He drew about the murder of his family. He drew of other killers that he admired, including the Colorado movie theater shooter and Jim Jones. Those are great role models. Wonderful.
Oh my God.
So even though that he has the possibility of parole, it doesn't look so good when you're still drawing things like this. Like, it doesn't look good for you.
You're not really doing great.
And quite honestly, I feel like Crystal just needs to show up at the parole hearing and they're like, all right, no.
Yeah, we get it.
You
We're
know?
out.
Like,
yeah.
So the house remained empty for a long time. And the neighbors were kind of like, until finally it burnt down one day. And the neighbors all were like, someone had to have just lit a fire to that shit.
There was a fire in our neighborhood.
Yeah. So today, the town purchased the land and they created Reflection Park, which opened in 2019. And it's actually really pretty. So they have like a memorial type of thing because they're like, we can't build another house on this. It's like a fucking Indian burial ground. You can't do that shit.
Yeah, no.
So as far as we know, they are never getting out of jail.
Thank God.
So.
Oh my God, my body hurts. I don't like that at all.
Sorry.
Okay. Wow. Terrible story, but you did a really good
Terrible
job
story.
telling it.
Terrible.
Does that
Terrible
like?
story.
I know I say it like that all the time. I'm like, you're so good at this, but
see,
I hate what you just told me.
I don't take it personally if you're like, that was terrible. Like,
That was
I don't
terrible.
take
Like,
it-
you're not
I don't
terrible.
take
You are a very good person and a
It's-
good reporter, but like, I hate everything I just consumed
I-
with my
I-
ears.
I did tell you like a couple weeks ago. I was like, I've got heavy hitters coming for the
Yeah,
next
no,
couple
you did.
weeks,
You
and
warned
there they
me.
are.
You absolutely did.
So, but yay, I'm excited for yours
Mine.
because you misunderstood the assignment.
Oh, I definitely misunderstood the assignment. Mine is also semi-dark, but I kind of tried to get it out of the way. So let's just get into this. So I'm covering the Pollok twins. I don't know if you ever heard of them.
Nope.
Okay, so we're back in Merrill, England. You know, we're chilling there for a couple weeks. So now it's Sunday, May 1957 in Hexham, England. Joanna Pollok is 11 with her younger sister Jacqueline. I don't know if it's Jacqueline or Jacqueline, but every time I say it, I think of Ever After. Jacqueline. So that's what I'm saying. And Jacqueline is 6. And they're on their way to mass, like they're going to church, and they're with their little friend Anthony, and they're all holding hands, and they're walking down the street, and we're going to church. Like, we're so excited.
I love that. I love it.
Hold on to that love.
Okay.
Because the 3 children are struck by an erratic driver.
Oh, for God's sakes.
Anthony, people arrive, you know, Anthony gets taken to the hospital where he passes away, but Joanna and Jacqueline are killed immediately on impact.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So after an investigation, they discovered that the driver, who's a local woman named Marjorie Wynn, she was under the influence of multiple drugs like opioids and everything else. She was very depressed and upset because her husband left her. Apparently. It's either her husband died or her husband left her. There's a couple different stories. But her husband left her. And it's not clear if her overdose was on purpose or by accident, or like, you know, if she was trying to complete suicide and this was like her suicide mission. But as she was driving erratically, like, people were trying to stop her. Like, people were trying to get their cars in front of her or like jump in front of the car and get her to stop. So like, she was driving erratically for a while.
Like, weren't they on the sidewalk too? So it's like she just like fucking like.
Oh yeah. So when she finally stopped after hitting the kids, because, you know, like, now the cops are involved and the cops are chasing her down,
Right.
and other people are still trying to stop her, she gets like forced off the road and hits something else. And she's like, what's the big deal? Did I hit someone or something?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
hit three
like had
people. You shit.
no fucking clue. But it
What an
turns
asshole.
out like she actually admits that she purposefully went after the kids because her kids were taken away from her. This is why it's a little weird. Like either the kids got taken away because her husband left her and took the kids, or her husband died and they had to become wards of the state because she was doing drugs. Like she was
Jesus fucking Christ. I hate
yeah.
it.
But she straight up was like, yeah, I was really upset. So I hit those kids because if I can't have my kids, nobody should have their kids.
I mean, that makes sense. Like,
Yeah. She was later diagnosed with acute melancholy and was admitted to a mental facility.
wait.
And
What
yeah.
is acute melancholy? What is that? It sounds adorable, but
I mean, it's the 50s, so it basically
So it's depression.
means it's depression, it's anxiety, it's
Acute
acute
melancholy.
psychosis. Like, to me, it kind of sounds like everything went bad. Her brain broke for a hot second,
and then
and
yeah,
this is what she did. And yeah, acute melancholy.
Acute melancholy.
I feel like I have that every other day right now. So
Like,
maybe we
seriously.
should warn Ken. I don't know. I mean,
Just don't drive your
whatever.
car.
I mean, what? Yay. But that's kind of where her story ends because, like, she gets put away in a mental institution and we don't hear anything else about her. So I don't know if she ever got out. I don't know if she ever got better. I don't know. So the three children were all buried next to each other, and they also held their services together. Like the families came together, and they just had services for all three, and they were like,
My
"We're gonna hold them in
God,
the round table."
I can't even.
So now
That's oh my
it's bad, but from here on out, it gets a little better.
okay.
Okay, so the parents, John and Florence Pollok, so again, Joanna and Jacqueline's parents, were beside themselves with grief. They were absolutely devastated. Both John and Florence were born in the 1920s. They met at some point in the 40s, and they started popping out kids around 1946. So many sources say there were 2 boys and 2 girls. So the 2 girls were Joanna and Jacqueline. Mm-hmm. And I also saw that there could have been 3 boys, but because the story is really about the twin, like the sisters that are coming,
The girls, yeah.
that's what we're focusing on. It's also said that as soon as Joanna could talk, she would tell people, like her family or other people, that she's never going to grow up to be a lady. And then magically at 11? Yeah, she gets hit by a car and dies, which is kind of weird. John and Florence were both raised Christian. Later in life, they converted to Catholicism. But John, from childhood, had this crazy fascination with reincarnation. And now I say crazy fascination, and what I really mean to say is obsession. Mm-hmm. Like to the point where he's Catholic, which reincarnation is not a thing if you're Catholic.
It's not a thing.
No, it's not a thing. But he would pray to God to give him proof of reincarnation. And him and Florence, this was a major point of contention in their marriage the entire time. Because, if I've been obsessed with ghosts since I was 5 or 6. So if I sit here and start talking about ghosts to Ken, and I just keep talking about it, and he's like, bitch, shut the fuck up. We would start a fight, and then we would get really heated, and then we would fight more. To the point where, they almost got divorced, multiple times because he would not, stop talking about reincarnation or let it go. So when his 2 daughters died, he was like, oh my God, I feel them around us, though. They're not really gone. They're going to come back. And Florence is like, shut your fucking face. I'm not dealing with this. Put it away. Put the crazy away. We're not dealing. No. Just no. Okay? But every night, I guess at some point he finally stopped talking about it, but every night he would go to bed and he would pray to God that he would send his daughters back to him. A few months after the funeral, they get pregnant. Okay. And the whole time that Florence is pregnant, it's, one child. You got one kid in there, you're doing great, blah, blah, blah. And I know I've already said it. This is a very poorly hidden lead. But when it comes time, the Pollok family is blessed with 2 beautiful, healthy twin girls on October 4th, 1958. And they are identical twin girls.
Oh.
Now, the chances of a family having twins, just twins, is very slim, especially
Yes.
if there are no twins prior. And usually that twin gene comes from the maternal side. So if there are no twins, like in my family, there are twins, like on my side. So we have like, a really slim chance, but there is a chance that we could have twins. We don't have twins, I promise. But, like there was no history of twins on Florence's side. There was no history of twins on John's side. So there's really no way that they should be able to have twins, let alone identical twins. Right. But here we are. And before I get into the differences, I have to make this part clear because I fucked this up in my own head doing my notes like 17 times. So the thought of all this, the two daughters now are named Jennifer and Jillian. Okay? And Jillian with a G. So it still has the just sound, but, Jillian with a G. Mm-hmm. So it's Jacqueline reincarnated into Jennifer and Joanna reincarnated into Jillian. And if you forget or get confused, ask. Because I get confused so many times. But when Jennifer was born, she had a birthmark on her hip that was almost in the exact same spot and shape as a birthmark that Jacqueline had on her hip. She also had a birthmark on her forehead that resembled a scar that Jacqueline had. At one point, she fell and like whacked her head on a bucket and needed stitches on her forehead. Right. And right where that scar had been on Jacqueline, Jennifer had a birthmark that was very similar and looked like stitches on her forehead. When the twins were 3 months old, the family moved to Whiteley Bay as like a way to start over. They're like, it's too much here. We're still seeing a lot. And now there's these twin girls and we're terrified. We're going to start over.
That makes sense.
So as the girls start growing up, they start to exhibit traits like Joanna and Jacqueline. So specifically, there are certain mannerisms. So Joanna had a splayed foot walk. Like how like your feet go out.
Like pigeon-toed, yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. And Jillian also had a splayed foot walk.
Oh.
Okay. Whereas Jacqueline had like a regular walk, like her feet pointed forward, but Jennifer's feet pointed forward. So they both kind of had the same gait as their departed sisters. Physically, Jacqueline was slightly stockier like Jennifer, and Jillian was more slender, much like Joanna. So now they're kind of looking alike, even though they're identical. And I know identical twins aren't always like perfectly identical, but there's a little bit more to it there. They had this way of showing affection by playing with people's hair. So like they would comb your hair or like braid your hair or like put your hair up, and that's like how they were like, oh my God, I love you, let me do your hair. And it wasn't in like that creepy little kid way where they just start pulling on your hair. Like it was very organic. They just kind of started doing this.
That's cute.
And then the girls started to remember details of Hexham Abbey, which is where they lived when the older daughters were alive. Now, they didn't live there anymore. They had already moved to Whaley Bay when they were 3 months old. So how are you remembering these things? But they could, they started talking about places in Hexham to the parents. And the parents are like, this is fucking weird. So when the girls are 4 years old, they go back for a visit. And the girls start identifying places. So as they're like getting there, they're like pointing out things that they had never seen before, but new information about. So they knew about Joanna and Jacqueline's school, and they called it our before school. Like, oh, we went there. That's our before school.
Oh.
They even knew about the girls' favorite playground, and they begged and pleaded and cried. They're like, please bring us back to this playground. We just want to go to our favorite playground. We want to go there. They had never been there. They'd never been to the playground. Even at 3 months old, they'd never gone to the playground. It's not like, they took them there as a family one day and then was like, this is too much. And no, the girls had never been there. They could, as they start like talking about this, the parents are like, all right, we can go to the playground. The girls walked like at the front of the line and knew exactly how to get there. And when they got there, they started talking about different stories that they had done at the playground, like different things that had happened at the playground, like shit they should not have known.
Okay.
Yeah. Then, so at some point they're home. I know I'm kind of jumping around. This part's a little weird. So,
No, but that's weird. No, it's just crazy because you're just like, huh. Okay.
okay, that's cool. Then, they find some toys that had belonged to Joanna and Jacqueline. And the two girls started like pulling at the toys, obviously. And they're like, oh my God, this was mine. This was mine. This was yours. Don't you remember getting this doll from Santa? This one I got for my birthday. And they like divvied up the toys between the two of them as though they were the two sisters. They even named the dolls the same names. Like there were these two set of dolls that they've both gotten from Santa, and they named them the correct names, Mary and Susan. Like they just knew. Then John started to notice that the girls were like taking on the personalities of like the original daughters. I feel so bad saying the original daughters because that's like, but it's not like the originals and the replacements, but I don't know how else.
Right, but it's just so.
Yeah.
It's just so.
So the twins, Jillian was born 10 minutes before Jennifer. And like I said, they're twins. But Jillian looked after Jennifer. Jillian looked after Jennifer like Joanna, who was 11, looked after Jacqueline, who was 6. So she like mothered her and babied her and like watched her and was like, nope, we don't do it this way. We do it this way. And at one point, Jillian's biggest hobby was putting on shows. Like she liked to put on little drama acts and little musicals. Like, I mean, it's like a kid thing. Like they put on little shows and plays and stuff. But she would make costumes and all this other stuff. And that was a huge thing that Joanna did. Like she was obsessed with like theater and like putting on little shows for her cousins and her friends. And then she started talking about putting on these plays at a house with her brothers watching, and was describing the room and the furniture and where the windows were. And like her mom's like, that's our old house. You know, the house that they moved out of when she was 3 months old.
Yeah.
Yeah. The girls also had obviously like a terrifying fear of cars. Like anytime,
of course,
they regularly had nightmares of being hit by a car. As they got older, they started to reference the accident and what happened. And on one occasion, Florence heard the girls playing like in their room, and they're recreating the accident that happened. So like the two of them are walking through their room, and they have like a doll with them who's supposed to be like the third
Anthony.
Yeah. And, you know, they get hit by the car, and Jillian starts cradling Jennifer's head, telling her the blood's coming out of your eyes. That's where the car hit you.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And Florence remembers that when they went to identify the daughters' bodies, that Jacqueline had bandages over her eyes because, you know, she had blood coming out of them. And, like, now Florence is like, wait, maybe reincarnation's, like, a real thing. Like, this is where she's like, maybe I need to believe in this a little bit.
Good Lord.
Back to this one. On another occasion, Jillian pointed to Jennifer's birthmark on her forehead and was like, that's the mark Jennifer got when she fell on a bucket. Even though Jennifer never fell on the bucket.
On the bucket.
Joanna did, and that's why, yeah.
Okay.
And this happened, like, in front of Florence and John. Like, they were at, like, the dinner table, and, like, they were just talking about whatever, and all of a sudden she's like, look at that mark on her forehead. That's from when she hit her head on a bucket. And they were just like, what?
They're like, no.
Homie, what? Why do you know that? Like, why do you know that story? What? Like, yeah. So by the 60s, multiple news outlets are now taking notice of the twins and the Pollok family. And it gets to the point where, you know, it's getting picked up. The story's starting to run. And the family, again, they're Catholic. So the church is like, excuse me.
Yeah.
What are you doing? How are you believing in this? This is bullshit, blah, 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 blah. Like, they're pissed. So the Pollocks end up having to leave their church completely. And I'm just going to say this super quick, you Catholics. Like, what happened to, like, loving each other and
Welcoming.
being nice and like, you know,
Everybody's
accepting
wonderful.
people for who they
Welcome.
are. Like, where did that part of the Bible get lost with you? Just throwing it out there. I'm so sorry.
Oh, I was actually going to say it if you didn't. So
Yeah, no, I'll say
I was going to say,
I
wait
even wrote it
to
down.
be.
Make sure you call them out because, you know, I grew up Catholic. Like, I know what it's like. But
I
it's
do
like,
too.
don't like that. Mm-hmm. So now, around 5, the girls start to lose their memories of Jennifer and Jacqueline. And this is very much what happens to kids of reincarnation. Like, around 4 or 5, they start to lose the memories and go into, like, oh, no, we are just the new children. Or
We're not.
whatever this
Okay.
current child is, that's who we are. And they start to lose it. And in adulthood, they couldn't remember anything about their other childhood. So, like, around 5 is when they started to lose it. They stopped talking about it. They didn't do their little shows with the doll and, like, oh, my God, we got hit and your eyes are bleeding and blah. You know? So, all this to say, obviously, there are people who think this is a hoax. All right? And maybe, I mean, some people are definitely like, you just told these girls what to do. I mean, but a lot of people don't believe exactly that maybe like they did it on purpose, especially because now I'm going to get myself all fucked up because I'm just going to talk. Like, some people are like, you definitely told your kids, like, you did this, you wanted notoriety, you wanted to push this narrative of reincarnation. And that was what a lot of like their Catholic friends, their church, like was saying to them, like, you're pushing a narrative that we don't believe in, like, you're wrong, like, all that stuff. But there's also the team of maybe they didn't do it on purpose, especially because they really didn't make anything off of this. Like, if you really think about it, like, they lost their church, they lost their friends, they didn't really make, like, money. It's not like the tabloids paid them thousands and millions of dollars because they're, like, if they ran, like, 1 or 2 things, it was more like a, look at this crazy story piece. It wasn't let's go on the circuit, you're gonna go all over, where like they didn't make money like that. They didn't make bank on this story.
We're gonna do
So a lot of people are like, maybe it was like an inadvertent thing. So like the girls were influenced, like, okay, the thing with the hair, like they played with people's hair. If that was the mom's love language and the way the mom showed love, obviously her kids are gonna pick up on that. Or, you know, maybe the parents, they overheard the parents or the siblings talking about what the other two did and kind of just took it on as their own. Maybe the fact that John believed in reincarnation so much that he was like, you know, like not realizing he was talking about it or being like, oh, you know, your sisters used to love this or your sisters used to love that. Like, there's nothing to say that they didn't reminisce. And then the girls started taking that on as little children. You know, that could definitely be. The other thing is, like, you know, the kids were like terrified of cars and like would jump if the cars came anywhere near them. Like, oh my God, they're going to hit us again. You know, maybe the parents were just so overly protective.
Yeah, I agree.
Of that, you know, when the kids are
and they noticed. Yeah, they're like going for walks, and mom and dad are like,
it's like, a learned behavior now. Like, oh my God,
that makes sense.
Yeah, or like when they're doing the toys and they're dispersing the toys amongst each other. Like, nobody says if the other siblings are there, and you know, if John and the mom are like finally coming around to this reincarnation idea, like, what if the other kids were like, oh, this was Jacqueline's, and not realizing this was Joanna. Right. Yeah. So now they're like picking up the toys like that and helping. Like, if somebody wants to believe that it's reincarnation, meaning John, and this is what's happening, you're only going to pick up on what you want. You're not going to really like decipher it.
Right. No, that makes sense.
So maybe it's not so much a hoax or like something that he's pushing, but it's just like what's making him feel better.
Yeah.
So now it's like, this is what it is. Then there's another theory that like fucks with me for some reason, especially because I'm having a kid in 2 weeks, where it's like the theory is that when Florence was pregnant, because she'd become pregnant so close after her daughters had passed away, that like the turmoil of, am I replacing my kids? Is this like, was this what I should have done? Like, should I be pregnant right now? The trauma of losing children, like in her brain, kind of like last week when we talked about Mary Toft and they were like, you don't think about animals because then you're going to birth animals, like that whole idea.
Right.
Like, what if it was a transfer cyclically of like this fear and this trauma and these memories because she thought about it so much. Like, could it have been transferred to her daughters in utero? And I don't know.
I don't know. It's
I
a
mean,
lot of, and it's a lot of trauma. Like, she just lost kids, and then to be like, I'm welcoming two more.
yeah.
Like, that's a lot. Like, so I get that that's a lot of trauma, and maybe that has something to do with it. But my question is,
yeah, go ahead.
how did they know about the car accident and exactly how each other was hurt? Like,
How did
my,
they
like,
know where the
because
playground was?
that's not something that the parents would be like, oh, so here's what happened. Like, that's very traumatic. So, and
But
you're right,
even,
the playground,
like,
they'd
let's
never
do the
been
playground
there.
or the school. Like, they had never been there. Like, okay, you might have talked about taking your family to the playground before the girls were born, or you may have talked about like where their school was. But like, this is the 50s. It's not like you're pulling out a picture and being like, remember, like, look at this school that your
Yeah.
sisters, like, oh goodness, da da da. Like, you're not doing shit like that. Like, even if they were like, oh yeah, you girls, you know, your sisters before they went to PS 118 or whatever. Sorry, Hey
Yeah.
Arnold reference. You know,
I love
like,
it.
they're not going to be able to look at the school at like 3 and be like, oh look, PS 118, that's where we went to school, and da 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 da. Like,
Right.
so
and
it's
like
little
know
things
exactly
like
how
that.
to get to the playground.
Yes, like they've never been there. It's
That's
not like
also
it's a lot. Like, that's like a lot of information.
for like a
So
4-year-old to wander and be like, I know where I'm going. They don't know where they're going.
yeah, I mean, you could take a kid to Target and like the only thing they know how to get to is either the candy aisle or the
Yeah.
like
The toys.
yeah, especially, and that's you taking them there all the time and doing
Yeah.
it. It's not you being like, okay, well, when you go to Target, you walk in, you make a left, you make a right at the first major aisle, and then you make another left, and there's the books. Like, you can't just tell a kid that, and they're just gonna know. So I don't know what you think. Part of me really does believe in reincarnation to an extent. I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but that's just something I feel like. I definitely feel like there are certain souls that are meant to be together like throughout eternity, and they kind of just keep meeting up. Like, that's something that I definitely believe in. But like, what do you guys think? Like, do you believe this was a hoax? Do you think this could have been real? You know, do you even believe in this shit at all? Like, am I just being woo woo? I just, you know.
No, I feel like I get where people immediately were like, this is a hoax. You're just making this up, and you're right. It could be a matter of like dad was saying things and the kids picked up on it,
Or
because
mom
kids
or
pick
the
up on
siblings.
everything.
Yeah.
But I there are certain things that I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Like the playground. The fact that they know exactly where each other is hurt during the car accident. Like, these things don't make sense to me.
No, it
But-
doesn't track.
And then the girls, though, like, if they're interviewed now, like, they don't, or they were interviewed, like, later, they didn't remember any of that.
No, like, they couldn't tell you things about their other life, but they remembered like saying and doing certain things as children. Does that make sense? Like,
But-
you
yeah, but
remember,
they don't
like,
remember,
we
like-
went to the zoo and we talked about this, but I don't remember why I said you had blood
Right.
coming out of your eyes. I remember saying it, but I don't remember like where that came from.
Right, and it's just it's so weird. It's odd. But
It is odd.
that's where you're like, people can be very skeptic about it. But, like,
Yeah.
there's certain things that I'm like, I don't know.
Like, yeah, there are just little details where you're like, what?
And
That's
at
what I
the
said.
age of like 4, right? If they happen to, like, I don't know why you would, but just say like mom and dad kept like the newspaper article about the kids and dying and stuff like that. They can't read at that
You're not
point.
reading that at 4.
So yeah.
You might
So,
color
I
on
don't
it
know
like
why.
an asshole, but you're not reading
Right.
it
So
and
that's
taking
and
in.
I'm pretty sure mom and dad wouldn't talk about it either and be like, your sister's died in a car accident. Maybe they had said, like, they're very protective of them when it comes to cars, and said, you know, your sisters before had bad
I mean,
accidents.
but this is the 50s
But-
and the 60s. Were they even really talking about tragedy in the family? Like, do you really talk about that?
Right. That's
I mean, that
true.
was a real time of like, you know, you push it down and you don't
Push it down and don't
yeah, we
talk
don't talk
about it.
about
Yep.
that, you know? So there's a lot of it. Like, I don't know.
It's crazy.
Um,
Yeah.
And I guess if
that's
you,
a good one.
I'm gonna
That's
put this on
huh.
like a little fun thing. If you really think about it, I guess Florence had like 6 kids or 7 kids too.
Yeah.
Yeah, if she had 2 or 3 boys and then 2 daughters, and then unfortunately 2
Two
passed
other
away,
daughters.
but she had 2 more. So
Yeah. So she had.
this was a chock-filled child's episode. Y'all are very,
Yeah.
very welcome. Let us know what you
Yeah.
think about the whole reincarnation thing. Do you believe it's a thing? What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
This is a little bit different than what I usually do, so let me know if you want like more like stuff like that, like random like stuff. Yeah.
I like it because it's something to talk about too. It's something to kind of be like. We always talk about this too with when it comes to like spirits and ghosts and stuff. Like there are people who are very, very skeptic. There are people who are very, very believers. And then there's people on the fence. And I'm kind of like sitting here going, okay, I could see that being something that maybe dad not pushed, like you said before, but maybe dad said. But there are other things that I'm like, I don't know about that. So
mine is always the playground. Like, how did you okay.
Yeah.
Your siblings definitely could have been like, dude, we used to go to this awesome, amazing playground. It had the best swings ever.
But how did you know how to get
so
there?
high. How did you know how to get there? Mm-hmm. Like you'd never been to this playground. You haven't even been to this area since you were 3 months old. You're like 4 now. Just explain. Like that's to me is like
it's so strange. Biggest. It's such a strange thing, but it's definitely something to talk about. And yeah.
Well, let us know on social media. Follow us on all the things. Go to YouTube and watch. What is that? Like, subscribe, ring the bell. I don't fucking know. If you want more content, if you're all caught up, go join us on Patreon. You can find that at our website, deathbeforebooze.com, and click on Patreon. Go to our merch page. Also, you can find that through our website. I think Jen's putting up some new stuff for the holidays.
Holiday
maybe.
Ones, yeah.
Yay. And then there's something else I'm supposed to say, but I don't remember. So do you? Welcome to December. And we love you so much.
Love you. Stay spooky.
Bye.
Bye.